Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jules, and we're here. Okay, let me start this over. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jules, and whenever you're here on my channel, you are one of my treasures. So let's try this. Take 3 again. So hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jules. I guess my computer is hesitating at starting my live stream. So, like I said, welcome. So remember, whenever you join me here on one of my streams, or just watching any of my videos, you're considered one of my treasures. Sundays is kind of a day to preview the week, see what's coming up. I have several topics that I got brewing for the future on my channel. One of which being my time in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church, if that's what you know it by. I am in the process of resigning from the church, and I want to make a series of videos on it. I'm sorry. Just always okay. Nothing big. I always check to see if it's family texting me. What I am doing, like I said, I've already done a video. Kind of my live stream last week was on how I got into the church, the Mormon Church, and how I was led into it. It's going to take a pretty long series, so each week I might put something more into it, whether it be in a live stream or in a series of videos. Like one series of videos I do want to do is a 4-part series, and basically in that 4-part series it's going to be talking how to determine that the religion you're in or is either what they call the high demand religion or even a cult. Hey Lena, how's it going? Glad to see you here again, as always. So, as always, I'm kind of reviewing what's coming up in the next few weeks as we, build up some more issues that I'll be talking about. And over the weekend, I do have a review of the video I did, kind of a summarization of the live stream I did yesterday about our topic of cosplay and what top 10 costumes I would get at this time. Eventually, I may do more about it, and I do want to go to Comic-Con eventually and see what I would wear for then. Maybe because Comic-Con is a couple of days, the convention maybe 2 or 3, and I would try to go to all the days and maybe have a costume for each day. And I would at least try to go to San Diego one, as it's the most popular and the best one. San Diego even now has a Comic-Con museum in Balboa Park, which is pretty cool to see that they're, since it's part of their culture and they like to see that being honored. Also, like I said, I do want to do something about my time in the Mormon Church. I've already given one little introduction on how I got in. Also, I wanted to expand more on how church works, and kind of do some research, and I can give a breakdown on like the leadership and and also on different things that they do that eventually that gets so ingrained in your head. It's very much like a programming. So, for example, let's talk about Sundays. We can talk about it now, and I can do a little summary video also on this. So, today is Sunday. So, um, today's what they would call it the Sabbath. A lot of religions will call it the Sabbath day, and uh, usually on a lot of them on Sunday. Sabbath actually is where uh, the Latin word, the word for Saturday comes, for sábado. So I speak Spanish, so you can tell that it comes from that. Um, and that was the last day of the week, and that's when people would go to church. The Jewish community does it. I also know, I believe, had a girlfriend that belonged to a church called the Worldwide Church of God, and they practiced it. And also, Seventh-day Adventists do the same thing. The Seventh-day Adventists kind of borderline at somewhere between Jewish and some things that the Mormon Church do. From what I've understood, a lot of rituals that Mormons do are also from Freemasonry, which we'll go into later on when we talk about temple rituals. And temple rituals are very hardcore. When I went to the temple the first time, it was an eye-opener. So, we can talk about that. I'll talk about that in a video, or maybe even in here as I start getting more people that are ex-Mormons, or are willing to talk about it. Everything when you first get in there, they want you to keep everything kind of a secret, that you won't tell anybody, or because they are sacred. But it's a very secretive thing that you do in there. Like I said, their terminology for it is sacred. So, for example, today you go to a different building. They call it usually a stake center. A stake center is for several wards. A ward is made of a certain region. So, like, say I live here in Albuquerque, they may say the northeast. The people that live from these streets to these streets in the northeast of Albuquerque will go at this time. So, say it used to be a 3-hour block. I hear now it's gone down to a 2-hour. So you would go, in the first part of when I was still going, it was a 3-hour block. Your first block was your church service, which they called sacrament meeting. Sacrament meeting would start off with everybody would start showing up, and you'd say hi to everybody as they show up. And then, hello and welcome to the stream. You're on with Jules. Feel free to talk in the chat. Right now, I'm kind of talking about my time in the Mormon Church, and how Sundays really break down when I used to go, and how it used to be a 3-hour block. So when you show up, you start talking to your friends from church. You start, you go out and sit, and you find your seats. I would tend to sit in the very back with a friend of mine, and he was really, really always precautionary. He would actually carry a little satchel on him, but it actually had he had a couple of firearms in it. But the reason is he said if anybody ever came in and wanted to do anything against the church, he would be the first one to jump up. I started carrying a little satchel also, but I had first aid supplies just in case. I was one of the few medical workers in my branch or ward. So then, like I said, several wards break into a stake. Usually about 5 to 10 will make a stake. Um, and your main leader at your ward or branch is your bishop. So usually, and he has two counselors, the first and second counselor. And as you are in church, and this, like I said, people are saying hi to each other. One of the leaders of the bishopric may come up to you and ask you to say the opening prayer. So usually, someone, as it gets close to the starting time, so say it's a 10 to 1 block, as it gets close to 10, leaders will go out there and say, hello, ladies and brothers and sisters, is what they use. And that's because they don't want to use your regular name. Yes, it is, Lena. It's kind of, um, it's different. Hi, Gia. You new to the channel? I've never seen your name on here. Feel free to put any comments in the chat box. Um, hit a subscribe if you're new to the channel. Gracias, Headwork. Sí, estoy bien por todo. But so like I said, I was just kind of breaking down like what a normal Sunday was when I was still in the Mormon church. So like I said, it was a 3-hour block, and so at the beginning, you may get asked to say the opening prayer. So then the leader of the bishopric would go and say what um, the first hymn would be. After the first hymn, if you were asked to do the opening prayer, then you would go up as they're ending the hymn. You'd sit down, and then you'd come up and say your prayer. Prayers are usually, there's what they call the order of prayer. So they say that you always go up and say, "Dear Heavenly Father, we'd like to thank you," and you could say different things that we thank you for. Many people included, the inspiration for the Book of Mormon. Thank you for the leaders of the church. Thank you, for our testimonies, everything. And then you would ask for blessings for different people, like people that weren't able to make it because they're sick. Um, and um, and also then you'd end in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I was Christian Catholic out of interest only. My faith is strong, but quite not quite the normal as such. I think God was bigger than we perceive. Yes, actually, Headwork. I started out. I was born in a Catholic family. My parents did christen me as a baby, but in my 20s, I ran into the Mormon missionaries through a friend, and I did join the Mormon Church. They do baptism by immersion, full immersion, and they baptize. They won't baptize babies. They baptize kids at 8 because they feel that's the age of accountability. They feel that baptism is a time to wash off all sin, and at 8 is when you can be accountable for it. Yes, and as I go through this, I'm going to show how the Mormon Church is very high demand religion. Yes, I grew up in a Catholic household. You go on Sundays, and I did go to Catholic school, so yes, I would go every day and have some, lesson about it. But I can show how high demand the Mormon Church is because at least 3, 4, if you get a certain calling, which is kind of like a job within the church, you're going to, you're going to have to go several days a week to the church building, or be getting calls from people in the church, or even at any time you may get a called to go help out with something. Um, so, so then on Sundays after the opening prayer, they would do the sacrament, which is kind of like in the Catholic Church would be the communion, but here they use bread and water. They actually use literal. Someone would bring a loaf of bread. They would put it on some trays, the different slices, and the priesthood blesses it. Now, to have the priesthood, there are two levels of the priesthood: the Aaronic and the Melchizedek. The Melchizedek you can receive it after 18. The Aaronic, you can worthy young men can receive it starting at age 12, and they can bless the bread and water. There's some other things that they can do, and they would usually, the young men would bless the bread and water and hand it out. And so then after that's done, they will have, and these people would usually be sitting up at the stand already, 3 different people that have been assigned talks to give in church. And then, one would have a 5-minute talk, one at 10, one at 15, about the same topic almost in general, but they would they would give their different spin. Now, with every church throughout the world, so the same topic is talked about so say if today they want to talk about what they call the word of wisdom, which is kind of the Mormon health plan, like what you should and shouldn't eat. So if today's talk was about the word of wisdom, you could go to a church here in New Mexico and they would be talking about the word of wisdom. While you go back to Florida and they would be talking about the word of wisdom. So it's like a universal topic throughout the world would be the same thing. But if you go to each church and different people are giving the talks, you're going to get a different spin on it. That is one thing I liked. Like I know in the Catholic Church, they kind of have you read straight from the Bible, and you're going to get different, the same, just word for word out of the Bible. So that was nice, though, that people could give their different spins on the same topic. Yes, I like what you're saying, that things should be balanced. Yes, and good and evil are everywhere. There's actually a spin that the church has on that, that evil had to be around for good to come around. And I could probably quote the exact scripture, that the fall of Adam actually had to happen so we could know the difference between good and evil. Because if Adam and Eve hadn't taken a bite of the apple, they wouldn't have known evil, so we wouldn't have the balance, as you are saying. That was one thing that I found interesting, that they really believed in. So after the 3 talks, then sometimes they had another hymn, and then like one of the leaders may talk, and then that was it. You do a closing hymn, and then you would go to Sunday school, and Sunday school may cover a certain topic. And once again, like I said, the topics are the same all around the world, the same topic in Sunday school. And then after that, you would separate to, they would separate men and women, and they'd all go to, women would go to what they call the Relief Society meeting, and men would go to their priesthood meeting. First, it's all the priesthood together, all the different forms, and then you kind of do a hymn in there, do a prayer, and then they would say separate to your separate quorums, So young men would go to young men's, elders would go to elders, high priests would go to high priests. Um, and it was always a good thing to see. Uh, you And then the women would go to Relief Society where they talked to, and then you would do another lesson in there. And then and I found like priesthood was like a big boys club. So at the beginning, you were just, talking and joking around. I don't know. Obviously, at that time, I didn't know what went on in Relief Society. I know they say they talk a lot about homemaking, and then they would do their biblical lesson or Book of Mormon lesson and go on. And then after that, everybody goes home. Sundays, it's supposed to be, like I said, your Sabbath day. You're supposed to rest. You're not supposed to uh, go out and buy anything at the stores, because then you're making other people work when they should be going to church. So it was very, very complex, because if you, like they said, even if you don't have enough gas in your car, you shouldn't stop at the gas station. You should just go straight home. And that, a lot of people would always say, yeah, I was almost negative on gas, but, something got me home, and they would always attribute it to just a blessing, the Spirit doing it, Holy Spirit, getting them there. Yeah, and that's one of the big things. It's like, they want to deny women the priesthood, but like me, I'm transitioning, and I I have the priesthood, as a male. So technically, I am a female with the priesthood. Um, so it's one of those big things. If they find out about that, I know even immediately I do have to write a letter of resignation, send it to Salt Lake, um, and um, right now, if they found out, I'm transitioning, I'd probably get excommunicated, which to me is no big deal. It's their thing. That's funny, head work. Yeah, and that I know they would, but I already found a form letter so I can write my letter of resignation. You actually have to write it, get it notarized, and send it into Salt Lake, um, and then they will, and just they would take my records off you know, off the scrolls, as they call it. But that's what it is. And then Sundays also, if you were, a priesthood holder, you and your one of your, as they would call it, for other priesthood holders, you would have a list of people. You would do it on Sundays usually. You would go out and do what they call home teaching. They give you like a list of 4 or 5, even up to 6 people that you have to check on, and you would go check if they have enough food, why they haven't been coming to church. Uh, you know, just kind of, I felt like it was butting into their lives, uh, and but at times it was to make sure that they were okay, and having food, because the church does have its own welfare system, and they have farms where they grow their own food, and you know make their own meat and stuff like that, which they would give to members that needed it. Um, So there's good and bad, um, but there were the good things that you could see about it, but other that were very controlling, very you know, um, things like that. Now, so yeah, Sundays were a day that you shouldn't do anything at any time. Me, that was probably one of my hardest things to grasp onto, because if I needed, if we wanted to, have like order out for pizza, we would. And that another thing that we're big on was, so like next week will be the first Sunday of the month. Um, and next week will be what they call so your church meeting would be your um, your sacrament meeting. That part changes a lot. And the first sacrament meeting I went to was on the first Sunday of the month. I remember when I was first joining the church, and this is probably the one that you can see where people are programmed a lot. They would do what's called what they call a fasting testimony meeting. So every first Sunday of the month, you fast for 2 meals, and after fasting, you would donate the cost of those 2 meals. Because church usually by the time you're done, it would be after lunch. And then you would donate the amount of those 2 meals that you would spend, and say you had a family of 4, what you would spend on each person, and you would, give it to the church for. Actually, it technically should go for a welfare fund, but when you think about the church, and I got actually last night I was watching a video by another ex-Mormon, and she says that the church is worth about $230 billion. And another gentleman was saying that by the time in the next 30 years, the church should be a $1 trillion organization. Therefore, the church was actually richer than Shell, gas company, Wells Fargo Bank, and what was it? And they even threw in another company, Disney. They're richer than Disney. So, and they have it in stocks, real estate holdings, and everything. This is all, and they said that this is all done from tithing money. So one of the reasons she was saying this was because she was saying how many Mormon mothers are making money from doing a lot of TikTok and YouTube videos, and how the church funnels the money to them. So, not directly, yes, the LDS, but they say in your titles, yes, the LDS, which is short for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So yes, they say their membership is about 14 million right now, but they're not counting active and non-active members. So they that's one of the big things that they haven't stated. Some of the people I watch on YouTube about the church, they do mention it. Okay, I'm just kind of reading some of your comments here, Edward. Yes, some do take advantage of their position in religions. I've heard from some ex-Mormons I follow how they bishops and stuff when they're calling the office, especially females. Nobody else is there witnessing what could be happening in there. Yeah. Now, yes. Ancestry.com is built from. It is a Salt Lake company. Also, the church has its own ancestry program, so which is attached to ancestry.com, but theirs is more and more actually a lot more accurate than Ancestry. So and I'll tell you why they why they do Ancestry. They want you to do your ancestry and build up your, see how many generations you come back in your family tree, and they want you to be able to do all the church work for your ancestors. So if you go on and look at any videos about Mormonism, or you hear about the church, many people will say about baptisms for the dead, and that's like one of the first ordinances you do for your ancestors in the temple. Well, a lot of people, when they hear about baptisms for the dead, they think, oh, you're actually going to the temple and baptizing dead bodies. No, they're not baptizing dead bodies. They're actually getting baptized in proxy for people that have already passed on, and therefore those people can go on to go to what they consider heaven, which is the celestial kingdom, and or continuating in what would be like Mormon purgatory, so they could wait for their further ordinances to make it to the celestial kingdom. Now they say that technically the spirit that's living in the spirit world there can make their choice whether they want to accept these blessings or not. One of the big things that happened is when they started doing all these proxy baptisms and ordinances, they started doing them for other religions, like, Catholics. It could be just anybody. So if, like, I grew up Catholic and then I do my ancestry and take it into the temple, I take these documents that you can print up from the church website for ancestry, which is very, very, very detailed. You take it in and you turn it in, and then anybody that's with you can do their proxy work. And so some people that are Jewish started getting baptized, survivors or people from the Jewish people that were in the Holocaust got baptized. Then there was they say that they baptized and did all ordinances for all the founding fathers of the United States. I could, yes, at work, I would believe the UK probably has very good records, but I believe the church has obtained a lot of records from the UK, and they're stated to be probably the best network for ancestry workers in the world. They actually have a vault in the Salt Lake Valley up in the mountains, and it is supposed to be one of the most secure vaults in the world. They say it is secured better than Fort Knox and the White House here in the United States, and it has all the ancestry records in there. They have a lot of documents that the church bought, especially in the 1970s and early 80s, that were fraudulent. I was actually watching some videos earlier about a gentleman that was a forger, and I had read about him in the past, and his forgeries were starting to prove um, the church, a lot of their beliefs incorrect, and therefore they were buying them and sealing them in the vault, but they were passing them as true documents. So if you have Netflix, it would be good to watch a series called Murder Amongst the Mormons. It is actually a documentary, and I had read about this gentleman in the past. He committed several bombings. Actually, one of them hurt himself, and it kind of drew attention away from him for a little bit, but it was very interesting. Yeah, they're meticulous in the records they keep. I have a friend, uh, I forgot how many generations he went back in his, like, you, okay, so he said the 1500s. I think he ended up tracing his back to like the 1400s. And when I was still going to the church, they had just gotten the new update to their database, and then they would bring this like 70-inch TV to, uh, and then you could plug in different data about what you had found about um, your ancestry, and then they would show a map from the United States back to ancient Europe, and they could show like how it came across, and then there were, like, this friend had, it would show the ship halfway through the Atlantic, and he could click, it had like all these little like circles on it. You could click on it and it would show the ancestor and show what happened to them, and whether, that they died coming across, and everything in detail about this person. Then you click up on another tab, and you could find yourself what, as they call them, prophets of the church you may be related to. Click on another one. They would click on there, and it would show what, like leaders in the United States um, you were related to. Click on another one, it would show you celebrities you were related to in some way or the other. They were, very, very, they had like 10 tabs you could, what you could figure out about your ancestry. Yeah, and like I said, from what I know as of last night, the church is a $230 billion organization. So, like, just from inserting, like I said, if you look at my title when I made this stream, I just inserted their, you know, from, doing a live stream about exiting the Mormon church or leaving the Mormon church, just putting on that, some, somehow the church will tag it, and they can't tell that I'm saying leaving but they just pick up the word Mormon, and once they pick up that word, it'll show that my video stream is talking about them, and that I might be interested in them or what. They can't tell who the person is. So if you start seeing, like, on my video, they start showing commercials, about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they'll start adding them onto there for other people to see that for some reason, they'll tag it. And then the value I was watching last night, certain businesses, like say if you're talking about computers, you make more money as opposed to if you're talking about how to cook something. If you put the word Mormon on your title, and if you're getting ads on your videos, and when you're able to monetize your channel per click, I think you will be making about $25 per click, as opposed if you're talking about cooking, you'll be only making $3. Yes, head work. I've known a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, like friends, and yes, they're nice. But I would suggest you watch a channel. I'm trying to think what his last name is. I know his first name is Owen. Let me look it up. He was a Jehovah's Witness for a long time, and he actually grew up in their church, and he has some very good talks about it too. And he explains, the differences about it, what was good, and well, really he shows on how it could be cultish also. So let me look him up here. But yeah, he's really, really straightforward about it, and how if you're ever talking to them and challenge them, they'll just shut you off, turn around, and face a wall or whatever. But I used to watch his channel a lot. I can't find the name of his channel, but he's really good to watch. And I'm going to tell you, if you go to like a Mormon church, the first day a lot of people will go to you. I remember the first time I went, it was really different because they come up to the people that they notice are new, introduce themselves, and ask you how they got there. And like I said, it was on the first Sunday of the month. And I didn't finish that conversation. On the first Sunday of the month, when you fast, they do what they call a fasting testimony meeting. And what fasting testimony is basically you being a witness to their beliefs. So after you did the sacrament, after you took the bread and water, they would invite people to give their testimonies. And when I joined, I went to a very big ward, like 300-400 people, to the point that they were getting ready to split it, because if it gets too big, they'll split the ward and make 2 wards from it. So like 20 people automatically walk up by where the leaders of the church are, and there's seats there so they can sit down. And one at a time, they were allowed to go up and give their testimony. So basically what a testimony is, you come up and you say why you believe the church is true. That's the biggest thing. It's always about what you believe, what the church is true. So people would come up and say, hello, my name is Sister Smith. I just wanted to leave my testimony that the church is true. I know that God lives. I know that Joseph Smith was truly inspired by God and found the golden plates to um, translate the Book of Mormon. And I know, the word of wisdom is true. Uh, I know that, we, Jesus bared his life to for our sins, atoned for our sins. Um, I know that all the commandments are true, and I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. They would always say something like that. They would always put those basics in it. Many people may put in a little story about their life and how they felt that they got to that point, and it just everybody kind of repeated that, and it was such a programmed thing to say that it was amazing that how you can hear 20, 25 people say the exact same thing, but just a little skewed because it's coming from different people. And it was actually kind of scary that first time. I remember going home and my friend saying, wow, Jules, I don't know if that should have been your first meeting to go to because I don't think you really understand what was happening. And I didn't really, but she kind of explained it a little more. And then the next time I met with the missionaries, I they explained it, and I just kind of let it go and just kept going. Eventually, you see it so many times, it looks like it's something normal to do, and 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 that's just the least little bit of it. Is when you start going to the temple, you start seeing rituals that are so cultish that it is just amazing. And once you get through a certain part of the through a certain start of the temple experience, they say, oh, if anybody wants to leave here, you can do it now. Or basically, they don't say it in these words, but they say, or forever hold your peace. So you go to the temple, you get to that section, and everything seems normal. Then after that, things start getting a little different. And there is a certain part where the first time I went, I felt it was culty. Now, I don't have any I don't have any filming or anything of that because you're not supposed to take your phone in. Um, but there are people that have snuck their phones in and show a lot of that. Um, and how you're saying that God is bigger than we all think. It's not a mind, it's an organic and way more perfect than our simple brains can even comprehend. Which headwork, if you say that, actually in Mormonism, they believe that you yourself, after going to the temple and receiving certain ordinances, after you die, you can go and become a god yourself, receive your own planet, and become a god. So that's why I say there's a lot of stuff. Hey, former TSTV, how are you? You're on with Jules. Today, I have Lena on here. As usual, Headwork has joined us, kind of elaborating on my time as I joined the Mormon Church and found that, it is a high demand religion, even cult. And so I was just kind of talking a little bit about how Sunday service goes and how different it is. And kind of right now I was going a little bit in the temple experience, and how culty that can be too. I hope to, I am going to do a series on, my experience through the Mormon Church, and also I want to do a series on, progression through many, parts of the church, and also, you know, and how getting through the temple was, and how when you look at certain things, it can be culty. I know that if you can go right here on YouTube, you'll find a lot of people that do film the inside of the temple, the celestial room. That also film, a lot of different things that they shouldn't film. Yes, at work it could probably take 1,000 years, but the more time I spend on it, I think the more people that can be prevented from joining the church, or if they're wanting to leave. There's there's at least 5 or 6 people I watch. I think it's 6 that are good experts on the church, and explain a lot of the what's not right about it. If you ever want to go watch the channel called "We Need to Spend on a Gaia to Become Like a God." I don't know their head work. So how long would it take? So yeah, there's a lot to the church. One of my things is, I started noticing a lot. Um, there's a lot of things that I noticed that were very contradictory. Like I knew, for example, at one point I was, as you know, I'm a male to female transitioner, and it was a member of the presidency for the Young Men's Organization, and there was basically, there's in the presidency you have the president, the first counselor, and second counselor, and I was the first counselor, and basically we would run the young, and then we had a scoutmaster, and then there was another gentleman that came in to come right off his mission. He ended up being the second counselor, and he's that. When you go to the church, you find him to be the holier than thou, prim and proper Mormon that you would expect to come to your door in a suit, white shirt, tie. But over time, I've found out about kind of how he is. When I first met him, he had just started dating this young lady. He had just come off his mission, so she obviously, when she joined the church, one of the big things was a lot of young ladies like to marry the RMs, or returned missionaries. He, she was a beautiful young lady, and she seemed a very conservative, very quiet. Over time, her personality has changed, but I think it has to do a lot with how he acted. You could tell, he thought highly of himself. His family was his father, I could say, was high up in the hierarchy of the church, And so for himself, he always thought highly of himself. And in time, he married this young lady, and but it took time. And but you could always think he had a real estate business. And actually, my cousin worked with him, and she said that all the time even after being married with this beautiful young lady, he would she would walk in, like knock on the door, would walk in, and he would hire all these knockout women, and next thing you know, he was actually cheating on his beautiful wife. So it's very, very common in the church uh, for that to happen. They talk about there being not cheating, not committing adultery, and sure enough, they are big on it. Uh, Even the guy that was the president of the Young Men's uh, organization at that time, he cheated on his wife. I mean, it's just they put so much into themselves, being portrayed as they're pure. A lot of them aren't. Um, like, and like I've said, uh, like, and then a couple of times a year, there's a big you'll have certain conferences that you have to go to. Some of them you can watch from home, which is called General Conference, done twice a year, April and October. It's the general authorities talking, and they kind of just give their talks and maybe change church policies. Um, a lot of, like, some of the policies that have changed in the last few years have to do with the LGBTQIA community. At one point they said they were accepted. At another point, uh, now they're saying that the child of a LGBTQIA family cannot be baptized until they're 18, say they don't accept the practice. So they're very contradictory. They'll change policy, and it has a lot to do with who's the leader of the church at the time. So there's many, many different things that'll change. And also, the church will change policy as to what is convenient for them. Like, many people know the Mormon church for practicing polygamy, which they did in early times, but that practice was stopped in the 1800s. And that's correct, Lena. Yeah, in the 1800s, they were still practicing polygamy, but it was stopped by what's called the Manifesto, written by Wilford Woodruff. And the only reason they stopped it was so Utah could become a state, because it wasn't allowed by the U.S. government. I mean, I wouldn't doubt now that there's a lot of people with polyamorous relationships that they try to bring back polygamy. That's just that's just kind of things I yeah, Lena, it is a crazy thing. I think with research now that they've done, I think Joseph Smith, the founder of the church, had about 32 wives or something like that. It's not, so you can only imagine how many children are out, or people are out there that are actually his descendants. There, it is. I saw it way back, and me and one doctor at the ER that I used to work at, we discussed this, and it was kind of strange because then I saw it. I don't know if it was a YouTube video or something about it, but when gay marriage was made legal by the um, Supreme Court, and they overturned a lot of anti-gay marriage, laws. I right away thought to myself, I bet you what'll happen with this is other people are going to say, well, instead of just gay marriage being, the ban being lifted on that, they should just say, oh, wow, it should be marital freedom. And that Mormon people would probably use it to start back in the practice of polygamy. And I did see a video one time, and there was one gentleman arguing against that because he did have several wives, and he was saying that they should be legal marriages due to the fact that they that if gay people were able to have their marriages, why couldn't polygamists? So I mean, I could see that always being like a big argument. And I'm really surprised with the money the church has, that they haven't been even just tried to start legislation to bring it back. They have a lot of ways of doing it. When you think you're a $230 billion organization, they would find a way. Lena, actually, you're right. Out of that money, just think about it. Even if they say there's 14 million members worldwide, so even compared to the Catholic Church, they don't have, the numbers of members, but they built that wealth from tithing money, which is a 10% of your gross income. So just say if you have a member that makes $50,000 a year, that means for them to do a proper tithing, they should be giving $5,000 a year. And the church, they say, which is actually funny, when they do teach the lesson, they say that it should be 10% of what you make. So in the scriptures they bring about it, they say, they would bring the examples like people that in the Bible were farmers or what have you. They would say, if he has 10 bushels, he should give 1 bushel, before money was around. But then this is how they say it's a 10% of your income. And So uh, yes, there is a lot of unhappy people. Um, and so they say 10% of your income. And like I said, it's the gross, not the net. Uh, and tithing monies would actually help them grow this income. And there's like, if you really look it up, the amount that's actually used for, um, helping people, like I said, like the fast offering money on your fasting day, which is the equivalent of 2 meals. And of course, you got to make it, your whole family. If you have a, family of say like four, you got to make that the equivalent of 2 meals for the family of four, and donate that to fast offering. Uh, that goes to the church welfare system to help feed the ones that are needing food. But tithing, I hear that it's less than 1% of tithing gets used for anything in the church that is needed. Uh, Many temples are being built. Uh, Mystic Mama, I don't know if you've ever seen a Mormon temple, but they are very large, beautiful looking buildings. Usually have a golden angel on the top of it with a trumpet. Um, they're gorgeous. Every city has a different architecture to the temple. Um, I remember the San Diego one got built. As it was being built, I was living there, and that is a gorgeous temple. If I would say of all the Mormon temples I've seen, it is probably the best looking one. But a lot of special things happen in there. A lot of sacred ordinances are performed in there. I use the air quotes because there is some secrecy to a lot of things that happen in there, and they tell you to keep it quiet about what you saw in there. But I'm willing to. A lot of more people are putting up YouTube videos about what they've seen in there, like stuff that they've actually filmed. I think I still may have my temple clothing, which at that time would have been white pants and a white dress shirt and a white tie. Um, Now, I didn't have this one special part of the clothing, which was a green apron that looks like fig leaves, and that has to symbolize, things that happened in the Garden of Eden, and the sash. Are you asking if I'm willing to show my temple clothing? I would. I mean, pictures of temples you can look right up online. Now, like I said, temple clothing. I think like I said, what I actually had was just some white slacks. Okay, so I will say that they are in my pod that still has to be transported here from Florida. But if I can acquire some, I will. There is a temple here in Albuquerque. I could probably. Now, as for men, um, temple clothing consisted of white slacks, like white suit slacks. I would buy Van Heusen shirts, so it would be like a white shirt. It would be a white tie, and then you could, and if you didn't own them, you could rent them at the temple for a nominal price. I mean, very inexpensive. Um, Now, there was an apron that you needed, a little set, and contained, for men, it contained an apron that looked like fig leaves and a little sash that went this way. Actually, you would change it from one way to the other, and a little hat. And then that little hat had a little string that you would tie, and then when you, at a certain point, you would change it from one side to the other. And funny story when I went to the temple for the first time. If I can get a hold of some, I will show it. I there has to be someone getting rid of one somewhere along, and if I can acquire one, I will. But and then the women wear temple dresses. I don't think they make them veil. One of the things that I've heard lately is that they don't make them veil their faces anymore, but they would have to wear a veil. And their temple dresses are usually very traditional, and they have to be long sleeve because after you receive the temple garment, which that I will get some temple garments. I may still have some around. They look like t-shirts and boxer briefs, and they have special symbols that look very Masonic on them, and they're about different covenants that you make while you're in the temple. I can look up the wording to it, and it has to do about wearing them, and that they're like, a lot of people have different stories about wearing the garments. The garments, they say, have protected them from many things. If you're military or any type of uniform service, you can actually get the garments in like an olive drab, so it'll match your uniform. One, so they don't get in trouble, obviously, with the military. Two, it would ruin camouflage if you were to wear a white garment, because those are things you promise to wear all the time. And there's been stories of like people that have been in the military, been wearing their garments, and when they're doing obstacle courses, and they say that before they started wearing them, and they would go through the obstacle course, obviously barbed wire sometimes, nick them and stuff like this. And then when they wore their garments in those areas where they had the garments reach to, so I said they're like boxer briefs, so they'll come down halfway down the thighs and like a t-shirt. They would actually protect those areas. So to me at that time it was like, oh boy, it just grew your testimony. Oh yes, this is a protection from God there. But now if you look at it, it was just an extra layer you were wearing. So maybe that extra layer, scientifically, it just probably just stopped it from going down an extra layer where you would get scratched up. So I mean, you just had an extra layer of clothing on, so that was it. But yes, Lena, I will try to acquire some. And when I say acquire, I'm very good at acquiring stuff. So I have, I know people are probably trying to do away with them. Some people, there has been a big exodus from the church due to many, many, different issues. A lot of people have found out about the church's wealth and what they are using the money for. And another thing that's making people leave are the stance on LGBTQIA issues. Me, it's just been a thing that, I don't know, I started finding out more and more about all these cult style practices, and I started really looking into what church is about, things that different, that came about. And, I was the only one in my family that was in. My daughter was baptized, but she decided, at a certain age, she's all, Dad, I just don't want to go to that church anymore. I respected her. And she wasn't even 18 yet, so I still wasn't going to force her. And that's where I think that's one of the major things that made me start focusing more on her than the church. So I stopped going, and I find it fine. And I've found that my life is great without it. I can focus on myself. Yes, Lena, temple stuff is, when you start hearing what some people talk about temple stories, it's amazing. There was one bishop in my ward. He'd been bishop. Once you have the title bishop, it never leaves you. So he had been a bishop, a stake president, but bishop is the one that never leaves you. And he would always talk about a temple experience. And this is where things start getting cultish a little bit. But he said he talked about one time about going to the temple and having getting some testimony about the time one time he went to the temple and he started noticing some people that were in there in the lobby area, because when you go in, you start at the lobby area, you have to show your little, actually I think I have that, I have my old temple recommend, I could probably walk over and get it. I know where I kept it. You have to show your little temple recommend, it's like your little hall pass to get in. And what is he says that he kept hearing these people talk and talk and talk, and he looked over and they're in the little lobby. He noticed some people, and he said it was people that were there and dressed not as formally, but nobody else saw them. So he said that to him it was people that were waiting to have work done for them. Do you want me to go get my old temple recommend and show it to you what it looks like? Yes, that is true. No, don't hurt others or yourself. Let me go check I gotta go get one of my planners and I'll check in there. Okay, Lena, so here it is. I found it. This is what a temple recommend looks like. I'm just hiding my dead name on there. It shows a picture of the Salt Lake Temple, and it also shows who issued it to me. So this is what it looks like. They may be a little different now that we're in the digital age. They're, nowadays. So it's, and they've said that people have tried to reproduce these, and when they try to get in, they've actually been able to recognize them before getting in. And then this side has signatures. And on this side, it has my signature, the signature of the bishop, and the stake president. To get this, you actually have to go and get an interview. And let me read you what the interview questions for getting your temple recommend are. Let me jump on Google and I will find those for you. So I'm just waiting for the temple recommend questions to come up. I will read those to you, and you're gonna find what you have to go through. I think these are good for 4 years now. They used to be a 2-year thing. I used to have a nice little like laminated temple recommend holder. I don't know what happened to it. And then these questions are for use for a lot of things. When they ask them to you, they ask them to you for just about anything. So, okay, it looks like I'm going right off of the church's website. So it looks like it just finished pulling up. So, Lena, I'm gonna read you the temple recommend questions. So to get a temple recommend, you go to an interview. Before, you used to have to go all the way up to the stake president, which is like an area leader. Now you have to go just to the bishop. So the first question they ask you, it says, do you have faith and a testimony of God the Eternal Father, His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost? So, you're supposed to say yes to this. And just to about all these, you have to say yes to, or to all of them. It says, do you have a testimony of the atonement of Jesus Christ, of His role as your Savior and Redeemer? Now, one of the biggest things that the church believes is what they call the atonement. Now, the atonement is really big with them, not so much as the resurrection, his crucifixion and resurrection. So the atonement is when he goes into the Garden of Gethsemane and prays, and they say he bleeds from every pore, and they say it's very painful on Jesus because blood is so much thicker than your sweat, so it would hurt to bleed from every pore. So that's what they say. Do you have a testimony? So meaning a testimony is that you have prayed about it and you believe in that atonement. Number 3 says, do you have a testimony of the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ? So in this question, what they're saying is, do you believe that their big thing is that after Jesus Christ was, went up into heaven after his resurrection, and then all the apostles were killed, then that's when the church went into what they call an apostasy, because all the apostles were killed and there was no truth around. So apostasy was basically that nothing was true then. The restoration came around when Joseph Smith found the golden plates in the 1800s in the Americas, and and found the Book of Mormon as another testament to the Bible, basically. So then the next one has to do with basically the governing body of the church, and says, do you sustain the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as the prophet, seer, and revelator, and the only person on the earth authorized to exercise all priesthood keys. Do you sustain the members of the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles as prophets, seers, and revelators? Do you sustain the order of general authorities and the local leaders of the church? So basically, they're saying, all the leaders have certain keys to the priesthood, but the head guy at the top being what they call the prophet, seer, revelator. So right now, I even forgot who it is. Oh, it's Russell B. Nelson. He would be considered the prophet, and he has all keys to the priesthood now. So that's saying, like, here my keychain. I can give you all my keys, but take my work keys off of here, so you wouldn't have access to any of my work stuff. But like me, I carry all my keys, the keys to my car, my keys to work, and everything. So I like, if I were, that's kind of comparison. So I would have access to everything that is mine. So the president of the church has access to all the keys. And as it goes down, less keys they have access to, but they're all prophets, seers, and revelators. Then the next one says, the Lord has said all things are to be done in cleanliness before him. Do you strive for moral cleanliness in your thoughts and behaviors? Do you obey the law of chastity? So basically, in there, they're saying, are you behaving basically with moral cleanliness? Do you not go and have relations with other people if you're not married? If it's the law of chastity, it also would be that you don't, do anything immoral, like also adultery if you're married. So the big thing is that females can receive their endowment and be sealed to children without a male, but males cannot go on forward if they are not married. So that's kind of a weird one, because they're such a patriarchal, misogynistic religion. Then it says, do you follow the teaching of the Church of Jesus Christ in your private and public behavior? Or doctrine contrary to those of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day? Do you support or promote teachings, practices, or doctrine? Oh wait, and public behavior with members of your family and others. So basically, if that you behave properly in the way that you're not doing a lot of the, things that they say no to, like drinking coffee or tea, or doing drugs, stuff like that. And then the next one goes on to say, do you support or promote any teachings, practices, or doctrine contrary to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? So right here, right away, this would not allow me to get another temple recommend. If I said, well, actually, lately I have had gender dysphoria, therefore I am transitioning from male to female, boom, I say no to that, I wouldn't be able to get a temple recommend. And they may suggest me to go seek counseling, and the church is a big proponent to conversion therapy. They have had several companies that did conversion therapy. The first one was called Evergreen, and now they have a new one that goes by North Star. So I've looked these up, which is kind of because I've heard about them, so I decided to look them up. This one is some of these can be very subjective, like this one. Do you strive to keep the Sabbath day holy both at home and at church. Attend your meetings, prepare for and worthily partake of the sacrament, and live your life in harmony with laws and commandments of the gospel. So basically, do you follow all the rules? Um, you know, in making sure you go to church every Sunday. Don't, you know, go to the store and spend money. So um, you you don't make other people, uh, go to work so they can go to church. Do you strive to be honest in all you do? This one can be very, very, um, can be very different in your answer, because when they say if you strive to be honest in all you do, they're saying, so if we were next to each other and you asked me, how's my outfit look? Or I asked you that and you said, oh, it looks nice. Um, but you were kind of just saying it politely as to, not make me feel bad. That means you are lying. So you're not being honest in all that you say. Um, I was, I remember being taught that so you have to be, they're saying that you have to be truly honest in all you do. So, and this one is a biggie for the temple. It says, are you a full tithe payer? So are you really paying all that 10%? The next one is what they call the understand and obey the word of wisdom. The word of wisdom is their little health plan and stuff that you shouldn't do, like drinking alcohol, using tobacco, using drugs, drinking tea or coffee. You shouldn't do any of those. So and this one seems to be new to me. It says, do you have any financial or other obligations to a former spouse or to children? If yes, are you current in meeting those obligations? That's a new question in there. I had never seen that, but I know with my first ex-wife, yes, I was very good at paying my child support. So I would have been a yes to that. Now, do you keep your covenants that you made in the temple? So if you've already been to the temple and this is not your first time, so you make certain promises, certain covenants, and then you also, one of the big ones is to wear your temple garments. So including wearing temple garments as instructed in the endowment. So the endowment is a special covenant that you make, go through a special ceremony. So you receive those. Are there serious sins in your life that need to be resolved with priesthood authorities as part of your repentance? So in this one, what they're asking is, have you committed any sins that are really, really bad, like adultery, or if you're single, broken the law of chastity? So that maybe hold you up. So they may say, you know what, for 6 months, we're going to hold up from you going to the temple, then we'll give you your temple recommend, but thank you for being honest. So therefore, we'll grant it to you, and for 6 months, you can't partake of the sacrament. Which is strange because the sacrament, the bread and the water, is supposed to symbolize, Christ's sacrifice to help you progress throughout life. You consider yourself worthy to enter the Lord's house and participate in temple ordinances. I think that's kind of a strange question because people are always going to kind of say yes to that, to themselves, say that about themselves. They're always going to say yes. So basically, those are the questions. Really doesn't sound like love and acceptance. Doesn't sound like people will try to. Yes, Lena, you're right on that. Not necessarily. It's really difficult to get excommunicated. I have a friend that and he was the one that was the president, the young men's presidency that I knew, not the first counselor that I was saying about that my cousin worked with, but the president, and she met him also, which was kind of weird that she knew both of them. But him and his wife were both sealed in the temple. Sealed means that you're married in the temple, and when you get sealed in the temple, it's not till death do you part. It's till what they consider all time and eternity. So if you die and you're married to your spouse for, that means that in what they believe is the, afterlife, that you're still going to be married to that spouse. Even if you got a divorce by the, your county or state or whatever, and you're married in the temple, you're still going to be married to that spouse in the afterlife. Well, my friend was sealed to his first wife, that he committed adultery, and all they did was what they call disfellowship. And disfellowship, they just made him not wear his garments for a while, and wouldn't let him take the sacrament for about 6 months, which is the bread and the water. So all he would do when the sacrament time would come up, is he would get up, leave the building, and so he wouldn't be seen taking it or not taking it. I think that was his way of covering up stuff. And then correct. So in the one question that says, if you're not doing anything, if you're doing anything that's not according to the, let me see. Do you strive to keep the Sabbath day holy and live your, and it says, and live your life in harmony with laws and commandments of the gospel? No, it's not that one. It would go with two different things here. It would go with number 14 with about any serious sins in your life. They would probably consider, since I am what I call myself as a transgender lesbian, since I would date other women, and being a woman, and being, lesbian, they would consider that a serious sin. I'm not wearing my garments. And do you support or promote any teachings, practices, or doctrines contrary to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? That would be the big one right there, because they're totally against, they're big against, they're really against the LGBTQIA community. It's kind of gone back and forth, but they've always been very anti. And so if they find out that I'm trans, I know I would automatically be excommunicated, especially because of this paper. I also found this in my folder. This is my ordination to being an elder and holding the Melchizedek priesthood, which is the higher priesthood of the two. And when it comes down to it, only men can have the priesthood. Very misogynistic church. I do have another one for what's called the Aaronic priesthood. I believe it's in the same folder. But the Melchizedek priesthood is the higher one. So men cannot get into the temple unless they have the Melchizedek priesthood. With the Melchizedek priesthood, you can do everything the Aaronic priesthood grants you. And then you can perform blessings on the sick with this one. But this actually came in handy for me one time, because two friends of mine, and they were cisgender straight couple, very good friends of mine, wanted to get married in Florida. And they worked with me. Both of them worked with me in the hospital, and I think the one who's now the husband, he asked. No, he was no longer working there. He was working as a paramedic, um, but she was still working at the hospital. She was a nurse, ER nurse, and she asked, "Do any of you know a pastor or someone that could marry and my husband?" And I turned around and looked at her and I said, "You know, I think I may have someone that can." And she goes, "Who would that be?" I'm like, "That's probably me." So I looked up Florida's laws on marrying people, and it says you have to be an elder in baptism. So this paper makes me an elder, and the Aaronic priesthood paper says I can perform baptisms. So therefore, I was an elder in baptism. And I called the courthouse, asked them if that was valid. They said yes. And I said, do I have, when my friend's marriage license, when I sign it, do I have to provide any documentation? And they said no, I could just perform it. So sure enough, this helped me perform a wedding. So I'm keeping it to be able to be legal to perform weddings. Although when even before that, what I did is if you go on the internet, there is one church called the Universal Life Church. You can become an ordained minister in the touch of a button, and you can perform weddings throughout the United States. I still went and did that as a backup plan. So yeah, so like I said, I still have these documents. I just keep them, um, I'm not going to give them back. They may take this off the scrolls or off the records when I do resign. So whatever. But yeah, you could go just right now. You can go click on Universal Life Church or become an ordained minister. And the very first website that pops up, you can just become one if you wanted to. Yeah, I know. I like keeping them. In years to come, it'll be good for it'll be good for my as I go through and do my series of on the church. It'll be. It was fun. I had to find a script for it. And they did their own wedding vows, so it made it easy. I kept it non-denominational, and we did it on the beach. It was like very few of us. It was myself as the minister, my two friends getting married. They had a best man, and I think our supervising nurse at the ER was like the maid of honor, and then after that they took us to lunch and they paid for it. So it was great. It was really cool to do. I know my ex, she questioned it. She's like, "Can you really do that?" I said, "I've looked it up. I've called the courthouse. They said it was fine." So I did it. Yeah, it was cool. Right now that you asked about it, to remember that I had it here in one of my planners. Um, so I know I don't know if this is my most up to date recommend. I know all of mine are expired. Um, to me, the biggest thing on all those questions, the thing I always had a challenge with was tithing. I mean, to just turn around and give the church 10% off the top of your check, off gross income. That was hard for me. And at time, in certain times, my family was having a hard time. Although they would help, it was difficult. It's just like, so it was a challenge. Yeah, Lena, one of the things I'll try to do and get samples of, I will get a sample of men's garments and a sample of women's garments so they can be seen. There's plenty other websites that show them, but I'll try to get them here. I will also try to get, I could probably put together a full set of, I'll go to Goodwill, get some white pants, a white shirt, and show what men's temple clothing would look like, and then I'll try to get a little set. I would try to get a full set of temple clothing for both men and women. I'll try to find, like I said, a woman's gown or dress for the temple, as long as it's white, long sleeve. Like my first ex-wife, she had one that was very simple. And then you just have to find a veil that covers your face. I think they're no longer requiring women to have the veil, but and there was something actually very interesting that when I was taught about the church, when I went to the temple, was the men had a little like beanie type looking thing. Like I said, it had a little string that came down that tied to the sash. The temple worker brought up that it symbolized a lot of what they did in the Temple of Solomon back in biblical days, and that part of the robe with the sash and everything actually was where our caps and gowns for graduation were derived from. So in a certain part, it almost made sense, because in a certain part of the ceremony, they tell you, they say you've done everything correctly, you change it from one side, from the left to the right. So he said that was symbolic of when people graduate, high school or college, that they always tell you to, pull your tassel over. And he says that that's where, the cap and gown were derived from, and yet that they weren't white, and that they were changed to symbolize school colors. So that was a pretty interesting fact to learn. Whether it was true or not, I don't know, but it did kind of symbolize it in a way. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Now, when you're talking about family support, for example, if you're getting married in the temple, so for example, my first wife and I, we got married in the temple. We did a civil ceremony, and apparently you're not supposed to, after you do a civil ceremony, it takes a year before you can get sealed in the temple. That used to be the standard. Nowadays, they're saying, they pretty much let you as soon as possible. But what happens, for example, both our parents weren't members of the church, both couples of parents. So my parents weren't, and her parents weren't. So saying if we decided to get sealed in the temple right away, they wouldn't have let our parents into the ceremony. Also, like wedding dresses in the temple it's a lot different. You have to into the temple. Uh, I had to get up and get into my little outfit with everything with a little, fig leaf apron, the little sash with the little hat. And my ex, she had to wear her, temple dress with the same thing, and her veil and the sash. And to get sealed, you have to do, we'll talk about these later in another video. You have to do these, you have to learn these secret handshakes, which help you get into heaven. And so you had to get into this one special handshake. And once you went into that special handshake, you would kneel down at an altar. And then the person that's considered the sealer, which is the person that marries people in the temple, would come in, perform his ceremony, and you have to kneel for I forgot how long. And then the room consists of mirrors pretty much all the way around. So if you have a mirror there and you have a mirror here, back there, you're going to have what they call an infinity effect. In other words, they're going to keep reflecting off each other, and you're going to see the same image throughout the thing. So what that was supposed to symbolize is your marriage for all time and eternity. So they show the mirrors, and your reflection keeps going over and over and over and over. So that's how the sealing ceremony goes, pretty much. It's very plain and simple, not like a civil marriage or marriage in other faiths or religions. And then usually people come out of the temple and take pictures outside in a regular wedding dress. So, and that's when the family members that can't go in the temple will join them, and then the number of people, even if they're temple recommend holders, are limited to how many you can have in there. So you kind of have to be able, be very picky of who you want in, because there's a very limited number of seats. When we were sealed, my daughter was symbolically sealed to us. So in other words, she was put in the church, in the nursery. The temples will have nurseries for children that were, if they weren't sealed to their parents, they can be sealed later on. Now my stepson was kind of a weird case, because he was from my ex-wife's first marriage, and for him to be sealed to us, we would have to have permission from the father, and we could not get that. We couldn't find him at the time, and so yes, it is very painful for some people. They they do say that there are, there is a lot of depression in the Mormon church. They say that Utah is probably one of the states with the highest rates of depression, because a lot of the limitations people have, the church is so high demand. That's why you call it a high demand religion. And like I've said, even culty even shows characteristics of a cult, which we'll review those in later videos. Utah has a very, very high rate depression, um, and certain people within the church, like um, people that come out in the LGBTQIA um, family, and that don't say anything in the church, but stay there and continue, but cannot practice, or cannot have, if you're lesbian and you want to have a girlfriend, or say you're transgender but don't transition because you're in the church and it's taboo. They just don't, and they're so depressed. There's a very high rate of Mormon people that commit suicide. So it's um, it's unbelievable how many they have. Um, and like I said, Utah, there's a lot of people with depression. Um, I know that there's a lot of Mormon women um, that are, first of all, they say, once men have this, and saying that they're, the priesthood holder of the house, they're the patriarch of the house, so it's a patriarchal church. So they say, pretty much the man is like the ruler. Many women in the church are very, very. If you notice how they are, they're not treated right. Um, I've had friends that have some beautiful wives, but they're the ones that, they say no. What the way it's going to be is, the way I see things, and I have some that, I knew some, like my friend that I said that my cousin worked with, and he would cheat on his wife a lot, but she graduated from nursing school, was an OBGYN nurse, um, and she would she eventually quit her job and stopped doing nursing, and and was a stay-at-home mom, and he would do his work. He's a real estate agent, which in the area of Florida I was in, they can make very good money. And uh, yeah, he considered himself the patriarch. They had like 3 children, and eventually, I think when she started knowing um, what he was doing, and she really started watching over him. But I don't think she ever really stopped him. She started becoming I don't know, starting herself come out a little bit, be a little more. It was strange because it wouldn't be something you would expect from this young lady. Because, like I said, she was so conservative. All of a sudden, you see her come and her one day to church, and her hair's a little purple, like like some purple highlights. And I was like, wow, that's not like her. But it just made you kind of take a good glance at her, because beautiful young lady. And then she started, in the church, they want you to keep a certain dress requirement. They want you to dress a certain way. So, I mean, it can be very nice attire. Yes, it can make you look nice, but they have like certain church standards. Like, women should not show up in pants to church. They want you in a nice long skirt with a nice blouse, which she did. But one thing I started noticing, from like some very conservative earrings, something small, all of a sudden she started wearing some big hoops like this. And I was like, oh, wow, that's not like her. Then one day she went and full on, her hair went to like full on purple. I was like, oh, it's unlike her. But it really opened my eyes to see her like that. It was actually pretty cool, because it, it it made her, I think it made her more beautiful to come out as herself. Um, Not, the facade that church would make you put on. So, just like me now, it's like there was a certain person they want you to be. You have to be who you were. Pretty much with me, it would have to be that I would be who I was born as. But once they find out that I was who I truly am, they're gonna. Had I gone and said, been over there in the church and been going actively, and then all of a sudden one day show up dressed as a woman, they're gonna, oh no, it's not like all of a sudden they're gonna say, oh yes. Now, Sister Del Sol, you can go to a Relief Society. It would strike such an imbalance that I don't think they would know what to do. Yeah, it was great to see this young lady just kind of, I think, dress more as herself, and I think she was more true to herself in that she saw beyond her husband's lies and um, express herself more. One thing she was the president of the Young Women's Organization, so uh, she really admired my daughter, and she would even go to my daughter's sporting events. Uh, Even if I couldn't make it because I was working, she would ask me, "Oh, Jules, when's your daughter's next swim meet?" And there she would go. She for some reason she was like really attached to my daughter. I enjoyed seeing that. I think one of the things that we're going to do, and then my daughter decided not to stop going because she saw. I think she was starting to see some of the things in the church. She's very intuitive and stuff. I think that we're going to make her leader of the young, like of the level of young women that she was at. Yes, and the sad thing about the church, like I said, it's a big boys' club. I think, um, and basically wants to just prove that the men are in charge, um, and if you're not, you're not looked at the right way. Um, Even amongst the women, there's certain things that you see. They'll talk, they'll gossip amongst each other. They're that was a big thing. You could see that they would talk and murmur against other women if they were, what, uh, they didn't think was right. I, I just, I just thought it wasn't cool. Um, I had one friend, and he was like, he grew up in the church, and he was just hardcore, and I think just grew up learning a lot of principles about the church that were amazing that you didn't realize it until someone else would question about it, or um, someone once asked me if because we were talking at work one time, and there was this other gentleman that worked with me in the hospital. He was gay, had a husband and everything, and we were talking about a little film I saw here on YouTube called The Godmakers, which is an anti-Mormon film made by a former Mormon, and in it, it talked about when we were talking about it, this gentleman brought up about um, how the church believed about what they call the curse of Cain. And the curse of Cain is symbolically why black people have black skin is that when after Cain killed Abel, he was cursed with a black mark on his forehead, and um, so from that black mark, certain people, that's how they got the curse of Cain, which is the black skin, and and I went and asked my friend. I'm like, so I said, it's called Bob. So Bob, is it true that black skin is derived from the curse of Cain? And like, just like it was no problem, he turned around and says, "Yeah, it's true." So the church believes it's something bad, and if you ever have a chance and can find it on YouTube, watch a little cartoon from the movie. From even just there's a little cartoon that talks about the Mormon beliefs, but it comes from the film called The God Makers. And if you can watch the whole film called The God Makers, it's very interesting. It was made by a gentleman named Ed Decker. Now, Ed Decker, I forgot what religion he grew up in, but married a Mormon young lady. And he eventually got himself baptized and then left the church years later and wrote a lot of books that were anti-Mormon. And it was interesting watching the film. Now, some of it you can catch about it, while others, some of them can be believable, while other parts of it can be exaggerated. So I would say just, if you ever have questions of which ones I would say are exaggerated, you can always ask me. The cartoon itself is kind of exaggerated, but it was, and then they have a part 2 to it also. So, and then there's many other ex-Mormon authors and stuff, and YouTubers. Like I keep saying, they're all really, really good. And another, I guess it came out a few years back, but it's actually forgotten in Mormon history. There's actually 2 things. There was a documentary called Murder Amongst the Mormons. It's on Netflix. I hear it's really good. It's about a forger that committed a lot of forgeries, and he had been a Mormon missionary and wanted to, I guess, get back at the church and wanted to just, write a lot of almost like hate letters. And so he made documents to look like people that were people who discovered the church had written them, and the church actually bought these. Yes, I recently saw John Dehlin doing an interview with a lady named Sandra Tanner, talking about this film, and with a couple of other people that have watched this documentary. I know I think it's several parts to it. I don't have Netflix. I might just get it just to watch this documentary. It sounded interesting because I've heard about these. He ended up committing like 3 bombings, actually, and injuring himself in one that almost made him look innocent. And he wrote one letter that really the church paid a lot of money for. It's called the White Salamander letter, and basically in this letter, basically what it is long and the short of it is Joseph Smith was visited one time by Jesus and God, and told that don't join any of the churches on earth. There's another coming along. Then later on, an angel appears to him and says, "Oh, well, you got to go dig up these ancient records, which are these gold plates." Well, in this guy's salamander letter, they um, they he finds them, but uh, in the letter he writes that Joseph Smith is writing that actually instead of an angel appearing to him, a white salamander, which is a very mystical being. Of course, Mystic Mama, I'm sure you'll like that. Mystical, magical being appeared to him and struck him 3 times. That's what gave him all the information. So Joseph Smith was always known for doing a lot of folk magic. He would use seer stones to find things, and he would swindle a lot of people. So there's a lot to it. So the fact that it's a lot about the white salamander murders, I want to watch it, and it's pretty interesting. Uh, that they made a film on it. I went and took a class one time here, and this is the first time I traveled to New Mexico. I went down to Socorro, and they have a center there that's run by the Department of Homeland Security, and it's a place to learn how to respond to bombing incidents. And we actually talked a little bit about those incidents. So I had read about it before, little things like that when I was really into the church, and there were little things like that popped up that you would think would challenge my faith. I kind of said, like, oh yes, it kind of challenges it, but the reason this was placed here was because it's going to challenge my faith, but you know what? It only makes it stronger. So, it's that once again goes back to the programming that you get, that goes into your head after you, that when you're an active member, and not until your mind gets opened and that your mind gets open and you start realizing the truth. There was another film, and this one I think actually came out in theaters. It was called September Dawn. September Dawn is about an incident that happened back in the 1800s. And when the Mormon Church had already settled in the Salt Lake Valley, and some other like missionary or Christian group was coming across the valley, and basically it comes down to the fact that there was some communication that they were coming, and some Mormons murdered a lot of people, and actually they call it September Dawn because actually this event where these pioneers were killed happened of all days on September 11th. So it was actually a lot of people that were killed by Mormons dressed as Indians. So if you can ever find that film, I would suggest you find that, because actually you could say that was the first 9/11. It wasn't as many people that were killed in the Twin Towers. I will never say that the incident at the Twin Towers is to downplay it, but this was also on 9/11, so kind of a coincidental type of thing. They were actually both it was also an act of terrorism almost. Yes, Lena, and like I say, I learned about a lot of these incidents on my own, and doing my own investigation and study. A lot of these incidents, when I would ask friends in the church about it, um, they would kind of play them off. Like this one I'm talking about, this September 11th incident. It's called the Mountain Meadows Massacre. If you ever want to look it up. Um, there's two sides to it, and they say that one guy, the guy that ended up getting prosecuted, um, he was leader of an army. They called them the Danites. The Danites was like a Mormon militia group, and basically he took his group, the Danites, there to protect about, and they say there's mixed, communication as to who they said was coming across and who uh, committed the murders. But like I said, they were dressed as Indians. I think that was like a cover up, so it wasn't looking like Mormons did it. So you'll if you read like if you went on LDS.org, which is the church's website, you're going to find one story of it. If you look on another site, you'll find a different story of it. But pretty much, yes, the Danites committed these murders, and it's horrific to hear. And like I said, it did happen on a 9/11 of all things. So, and then, so usually when you find negative incidents like that, or about different like things that have happened throughout history, or why certain things change about certain policies, so to speak, when it has to do about politics with the church. So, for example, polygamy stopped, so Utah could become a state. And supposedly, revelation came to the leader of the church. Then he wrote a manifesto. It was placed in the Book of Mormon, and you can read the manifesto, and supposedly it doesn't happen anymore. So my friend that I was talking about earlier, Bob, he once brought it up in church in Sunday school, and I think he had already talked about it with me once before. So I'm sorry, I got hair in my mouth. What he said was that, for example, I did say that I was married with my first wife in the temple, and say, so to get a temple divorce is very, very difficult. You have to take it all the way up to Salt Lake, to the first presidency. So that means the prophet, as they call them. Prophet, seer, revelator, president, they have like a dozen different names. And then, but technically you're sealed, but now say my first wife would have passed. So then if I met someone else and then they wanted to get sealed in the temple with me, I could get sealed in the temple with them. And therefore, I would have two wives for all time and eternity. So men could technically still practice polygamy eternally. So yes, I have watched Sister Wives, and I'll have to see that with Amanda Ray. Sister Wives, I did see a few episodes, but seemed a little that they were doing a lot of stuff there for money, I think Amanda Ray, didn't she have a show where they would go and it was Escaping Mormonism or something like that? I think that one was excellent because they actually I think they were doing recreations of people that wanted to escape uh, the fundamentalist church. Her and her sisters would help people escape, and they actually showed that how the fundamentalist church uh, would actually have like their own policing unit. They called it the God Squad. Um, they, you know, they're probably had enough money. Now they probably don't have the money that the mainstream church has, but it seemed like they had a lot. Um, Other things. So men can technically practice polygamy if they have wives that passed. Yeah, escaping polygamy. That was it. Um, and but in the mainstream church, you can technically still practice it. So if your first wife passes, you can marry them in the marry a second wife in the temple. That means you'll have two wives after death, and so forth and so on. So if your second one dies, you could marry a third one in the temple, and you would be practicing polygamy with three wives after death. So yet, if a woman was married in the temple with her first husband, she could not remarry in the temple. And he passed, she could not remarry in the temple. They would have to annul the sealing of the first husband, and that would be a very, very difficult process to do. Another show that I watched, Lena, that was very interesting, and it was out there, but it did a pretty decent job at bringing a lot of things in Mormon history together. Did you ever watch Big Love? Because although it was a little outlandish, when I started watching it, I watched it all the way through from season 1 to the end. There were certain things that were going to happen, and it was strange because I was still with my current ex, and she would always tell me, "Don't say anything." She's all stay quiet during the whole show, because I could pick up and predict certain things that were going to happen in the show, because they used so much of true Mormon history in it that I could actually predict things were going to happen. Like at a certain point, one of the guys starts doing some bombings. Yeah, that's actually an HBO show. It was about polygamous family. They were FLDS. Um, it's a fictional show, but it actually followed so many timelines and things that happened in the mainstream church so well that I could predict many things that were going to happen. Like one guy starts doing bombings and he puts one down, and I'm like watching it. I'm like, oh, and I'm just thinking to myself, he's going to get injured from this one, because it was his third one, and sure enough, he gets injured. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then she's like, no, stay quiet. And then at the end, I tell her, I'm like, that just follows part of history. I'm like, that's following the Mark Hoffman bombings, salamander bombings. I said, and then I found out certain things about like conversion therapy that was practiced on people in the church, like where they did like electroshock therapy, trying to show they would take you to like a camp to make sure that people um, that they show them like pornography, which is the church is big against, to try to make you normal, you know. So, um, which I don't know how it would work for me, being that I say I'm, I'm transitioning, but I'm lesbian, so how they would have done anything like that for me. Um, and they mentioned Evergreen on there, which was their first camp or conversion therapy center. And now I looked it up, and they're no longer online, but I found something that now they do use a company or a company name called North Star. So it just, they change it to cover their tracks. But yeah, watch Big Love, because it's actually very follows a lot of the history of the mainstream church. I was amazed how they put in things from the history of the mainstream church in there. Um, Except at the end, it's still something that's never happened. Hey Alice, how's it going? You're back on here. I've got, as usual, I've got Lena on here. We did have head work on here earlier. We've been talking a lot of actually Mormon stuff, because you know how I'm doing my little uh, series on leaving the church. Um, so I've been giving a lot of history about it. I don't know what I'm having for dinner yet. I did a very simple lunch. I pulled out a can of SpaghettiOs, something I haven't had in a long time, and and then I and then uh, and then I did a couple of pieces of Texas toast with it, and went from there. So yeah, I was just Lena and I were just talking about certain shows about Mormonism that actually pretty accurate on TV. So we're talking about escaping polygamy, because we were talking about some of the people we like to watch here on YouTube that are former Mormons, um, and also I was talking about some TV shows that were fictional but are really good. Netflix has a very historical film about a guy that did a lot of forgeries, but they were towards the Mormon Church, trying to make it people question it, and so um, and he committed some murders. Which one was Lizzie, Alice? I was about to say, was she the cute little blonde that used to come out on there? What car did she have? Did she have a Mustang for a while? Okay, yeah, I remember her. I remember her from her first appearance, where she crashed it at one point, didn't she? Like on her first race. Um, that would have been nice, because first of all, she wouldn't have had passed. I mean, but yeah, it would have been nice. Um, so, like I said, we were talking a lot about the, being that it was a Sunday, I thought I would talk a little bit about what my Sunday would have been, had I still been in the church, and we've been talking about little offshoot topics about it. We've gotten into like temple clothing. I actually showed my what my temple recommend used to look like. Um, you know, uh, Lena did ask if I can find my temple clothing. I am going to look for some, because or make a set of them. I will. What I Lena actually, what I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna try to put together. I will get undergarments. After you go to the temple, you're supposed to wear special. A lot of people call it magic underwear, or special. They're called temple undergarments. So, what you do is you wear those after going to the temple, and they're supposed, like I said, they're supposed to protect you from the outside world, from committing any temptation. Uh, Supposedly, there's, friends of mine have told me it's uh, stopped them from committing any major sins, because they're tempted by other women as they're taking them off. Then they see they take their clothes off, and then they saw their garments, remembered their covenants, and therefore did not commit adultery. Um, so there, I will try to get a set of men's garments and a set of women's garments. Um, I will see how I can probably order them off the site more than just going to the store. But I will order some and show them. I will also, I could probably go to a thrift store and put together what a what men's outfits would look like, and what um, a woman's outfit would look like. I would have to look around. I could probably find it online and see who would have a set of the little apron and sash, and for men, having the little cap. I think that would be cool. I will, and then and maybe in one video we can go over. I know many people have done it. Show how ceremonies go. Uh, I will look up, like what the new one's like, but the ceremony in the temple has changed so much. When they first started, they actually had people do some what they call blood oaths. They would make you promise that if you actually revealed any of the rituals or anything like that, or talked about it, like way back, I think um, in the 1990s, I think it was still around. They actually had you do, yes, Alice, thank you. Um, they would actually let you. Um, it would actually make you do certain symbols that would say that if you revealed any of these secrets, you would slit your throat or get disemboweled. So there's some crazy stuff that used to go on in there. When I went, they didn't do that part of it anymore. Um, but there were some other things that have changed about it since then. Um, One of the first things they do in the temple, they do what they do is called a washing and anointing. So they make you buy your temple garments before. No problem, Alice. So they make you buy your temple garments before you go in, and before you go in, as you go into the temple, they make you walk into this locker room. You're going to change into your when I went for the first time, they made you change into like um, you had your temple clothing, but at the locker room they gave you like this like cover up, and basically you were it symbolized the garment, and but it was like almost like plastic and had slits down the side. The garment symbolized these special underwear or temple garments, as they call them, that you wear afterwards. Um, were supposed to symbolize the garment that Adam wore after him and Eve realized they were nude. So it was supposed to be like that's why they were like boxer briefs and a t-shirt type style. Yeah, it's just a little bustier basically, and a small, and it's a short like flannel top. Yeah, so it's just a little bustier. Decided to go on the wild side today, especially talking about temple stuff and church stuff. See, my tank top only goes to about, or my top only goes to about there. Yeah, Lena, and as you go in to get this washing and anointing, you put like this cape over you, and it was plastic. It had slits down the sides, and then you would go in. Yeah, I know. I had bought this off of Timu, and then this top I found it at what they call ABQ liquidators, meaning Albuquerque liquidators. And basically, a lot of Shein stuff goes there, Target, Amazon. I don't know if they're returns or what. And they just put them in this big bin, like they dump the box in. And what they do is they sell the clothing for like one for $3, two for $5. So I saw this top there. I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get that. I bought a real nice dress there. I bought some white pants there. I bought a couple of tops. One time, I mean, you can go and for $10 buy like 4 different items. If you just have to look around through the baskets. Shan has this one size. It's called 0XL, and it fits really good. Um, Yeah, Alice, like I said, I was a member of the Mormon Church for several years. Technically, I still am. I just have to send my letter of resignation. I mean, right now, if they were to find out that I am, they would probably excommunicate me because of my transition. They're not big with the community. So, yeah, and it's just got a zipper. So if I just wanted to zip it up, Lena, I could just zip it up. And it's just short, is like I found it really cool. Like I said, I had ordered this and I thought it matched the colors really good. I don't know if the mixing of the patterns is so. To continue, Lena and Alice, about the temple, you go in and get this washing and anointing. And this washing and anointing, as you have this cape on, they take you into this room, and they like do a blessing with oil, and they would use this like little thing this little flask, and they would put oil on different parts of your body. Granted, at the time I went, and it would be on your head, your arms, and I mean, I think they even went with the genitalia at the time. It was kind of, and actually with the women at this time, they were already using what they said, a priestess, which I was surprised. If not, they were, I wasn't surprised that they were still using men, because they're very behind, very misogynistic, and but they would say these special blessings, and then they would have you come out in what represented the garment that Adam wore, and then you would go and put on your cloth garments that you bought, and then you would put on your temple clothing, which would be like I would wear at that time: black slacks, a black shirt. I mean, not black, but white pants, white shirt, white tie. The first time I went, I actually had to rent clothes, and then get, I had to, get and rent the little sash, like I said. I haven't been measured. There's only size, like, for example, the one I usually wear is a B cup, and I almost fill it. And it's a push-up bra. So and it's actually fit really well. I bought that one on Shein. It's got underwire that kind of pushes up here, and you can actually tighten it a little bit, and it pushes up. This is kind of a little like bustier. It doesn't go down as far as a lot of them do. I want to get one that goes down a little more. Like after talking cosplay yesterday, I want to get one that's like full down, and so I could do like Black Canary. About a week ago, I had bought some fishnet stockings, and I could have done Black Canary if I had an outfit like that, but it wasn't. The fishnets tore really easy. And yes, the reason I think they would have a priestess, and which, like I said, it would just be probably symbolic. They probably didn't hold the priesthood like I did at that time, because they just didn't want to get in trouble. I'm sure there was at one point where only men were performing it, but I'm sure some women, complained and said something was done wrong, and so yeah. And then you would go to a different room, and this is the endowment room, and you would go and you'd watch a film, and the film was about the creation of the earth and how things happened in the Garden of Eden. And in certain temples, they still do an actual play, but not many of them. Now they do a film, and it's a long film, and it talks about the 7 days of the creation of the earth. It talks about how man falls, how Satan tempted Eve, and then Adam falls, and then it talks about, kind of like the restoration of different things, and then you go on to learning these secret handshakes, which we'll review later on. Learn about these secret handshakes. You learn, and then you do this This is the one that got me, and it was too late to bow out of the ceremony, because at the beginning they say, oh, if you don't want to go through this, this is the time to leave. Well, of course, they do it before you get to this one where you do this prayer circle. And way back in the past, you used to do the symbol of like slitting your throat, disemboweling yourself, or someone would disembowel you, almost like uh, for revealing anything, um, and and then uh, then you have to cross this veil where you have to show the secret handshakes. You're asked to say, now you are given a new name at one point in time, and it's supposed to be secret because that's what your new name's going to be when you cross the veil, supposedly to the celestial um, kingdom, it's supposed to be secret to you. Uh, Now, when you bring, like, say, I brought my ex-wife across the veil, she was able to reveal her name to me, but I could never reveal my name to her. And and when you go across the veil, you come into this room. It's called the celestial room. It's supposed to be very, the closest it'll be on earth to the celestial kingdom. And it was the ceremony kind of is very different. And it, it's come to find out that your new name, if you think it's unique to you, it's not. So like all the men that day received the same new name. All the women received the same new name. The only reason I found that out was the next time I went back to the temple and did some temple work for family. Sure enough, we went through like 3 sessions, and every time I kept receiving the same new name. So it was awkward. I'm not kidding, Lena. I tell you, it's just they make you, it's kind of tricky. Alice, mine is tomorrow. Actually, my birthday is at 12:37 a.m. Well, that's good, Alice, that he recognizes you as a woman. Yeah, that's awkward because when you're going through your first time, you think you're receiving this new name, and it's going to be special, and the first time I'm like, oh, cool, and it's this bit. It's a biblical name. It's always going to be something biblical from the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament, and nope. They've said it. Several people have said it. I know Exmo Lex has said it on her channel. I think Cults to Consciousness or someone on there said it. Delin has said it, but it's just a repetitive thing. They know, and they all know the temple ritual because it's it's part of their culture, and they grew up in the church. Yeah, I have watched, I watched all of them frequently, and it's a cool thing to, I like watching their channels all the time because they say so much that Alice, that's amazing that he's still around though. He's now he's blessed. Yeah, it's just and then you can come back again and do the same ordinance, but you can't do it for yourself again. So the next time you come, you do it for some of your dead ancestors. Thank you, Lena. You know, if if I were to be asked by one of them, I would go on there. Especially, I know they've already had one young lady on there um, go on there, and she was I know she's trans, also male to female trans. Actually, her and her wife have their own channel. I do follow them. Well, I don't know. I may do a stream. I don't know if I should stream or just post something. I work 7 to 5:30 tomorrow, um, so it is a 10-hour shift. But I usually finish with my last patient about 4:30. I may sneak out a little early. Wednesday I want to sneak out a little early. I have to go get my medication. Ran out of hormones the other day, and I need to get back on them. Thank you, Alice. I've, lately I enjoy the streaming's been really cool. I have my regulars like you guys, and head work comes on here from time to time. Um, and Thanks, Lena. I was watching that, Alice. Right now, Hurricane, what is it? Beryl, um, is actually a Category 4. It may the it intensified today. I was looking at the cone of, I call it the cone of improbability, but it's called the cone of probability of where it may strike. Um, it'll have a lot to do with when it gets into the Gulf. Now, when they say after it passes the Yucatan Peninsula, it may be down to a 2 or a 1. Right now, it's still a major hurricane. Um, that's the one I'm talking about. It's a 4 at this last time I checked. Um, and the thing is, when it gets to the waters of the Gulf, well, because it's going to pass over the Yucatan Peninsula. Whenever it passes land, it weakens, and but the waters of the Gulf have been very warm, and if anything that hurricanes love are warm water, and that'll make it intensify a little more. I don't know if it'll go back up to a 4. That'll be, a little, um, you know, it can be a little intense. My first hurricane I ever went through was Hurricane Charlie, and that was a Category 4. But the worst one I was through was 2 years ago, was Hurricane Ian, and and that was a Category 5. If there was actually a Category 6, that probably would have been a 6, because it got winds of 170 at one point. So I don't know what it would take to make it a 6. And of course, that's off the scale that Lena, hurricanes can be scary, but the thing is, you can predict where they're at. Unlike, say, like tornadoes, like where you're talking about, um, tornadoes just kind of touch down. At least hurricanes, you can watch the news and um, and predict where it's at and how far away it's from you, and you can prepare. The thing is, with hurricanes, people like to prepare at the last minute. So you have to watch which way it's going. I would stay on top of it when I lived in Florida. And, once I saw anything like the track start taking towards Florida, I would watch the, because depending on how close it is, I would watch the 4-hour updates. You just have to stay on NOAA, and then you watch 4-hour updates, and they go down to 2 hours. Then you just start have to listening on the radio. Phones will give updates, and but you should. One thing is people should have, and I'm gonna tell you, this is what I'm gonna say. It's kind of strange, Lena, but this is something that the Mormon Church taught since I believe it was the 1970s. Was preparedness, disaster preparedness. And they said uh, if the, as the good members should start off and prepare and have enough food, clothing, and money for 72 hours. Then after those 72-hour kits, you should have a week's worth. Then after a week's worth, you build a month's worth of food. Then after that month, you maybe build a 3-month supply, and it should be stuff that won't spoil, obviously. And they would even do these like special like cannery events at the church building where you could order food. You would can it yourself, and then they would want you to have a 1-year supply of food, also clothing, and do like some type of savings. And it could come down to natural disaster. It could come down to financial disaster. Someone lose the job in the home or whatever. You would always have this backup supply of food. And trust me, Lena, I saw people that you would be in their living room, and if you opened up, well, I would say the table, because it's not a coffee table. I've heard other nicknames for it because Mormons don't drink coffee. And if you open the doors on that, there's all this like canned supplies. You would go to like, say, to hang your coat in the coat closet. There were all these canned supplies. Go in their garage, and there were all kinds of canned foods or, dried fruits and stuff. It was just amazing how much someone had. I had one friend literally had probably at least a year's worth of everything you could imagine that wouldn't spoil. Yeah, and it could be pretty bad for the boats. When I got deployed after Hurricane Ike, and I went to Galveston Island, many of those I saw fishing boats that were in the middle of the city. I mean, even if they tie them down, they end up in the middle of the city. I saw cattle in the harbor, and that's why we called it Bovine Bay. And yeah, Lena, like I was saying, it's a big thing they teach on preparedness. It has to do, like I said, it could be any type of disaster. Disasters come in many different forms: financial, natural, man-made. So yeah, the church was big on teaching that. And if you ever want like disaster food, look up different companies that make disaster food. I'll tell you, the one that makes good food is this company called Wise Foods, and look up where it is made. It's based, I believe, right out of Salt Lake City, Utah. These are just people, and if you ever watch the show Doomsday Preppers, um, and watch it, the series all the way through, count how many of those preppers were in Utah. It's just, it's a big thing with them. That same friend that had all the food, like I said, he was preparing for more than just um, this, like a disaster. You could say he was probably preparing for an apocalypse. Um, he had a lot of. He was a gunsmith. He had been in the National Guard. He was a firearms instructor and a gunsmith, and he would buy at gun shows. He would buy firearms, repair them, sometimes sell them, other times keep them. I helped him move one time, and every mattress, and I think, well, what was it? He had two sons, a daughter, and obviously him and his wife. Um, and every mattress and box spring that they had in their house, when we loaded up the U-Haul, I helped line up firearms, like I swear, like loads of like rifles, like on the king size mattress. Boom, you put the box spring. Same thing, put another rows of them. Then the kids, and then they had so many. I mean, hundreds of firearms. And then like, um, and he, honestly asked him one time. I asked him, why do you have so many? And he goes, or when that time that he was moving, he's all, Jules, I feel that someday we're going to have to protect the church. So that was his idea. And he, he just felt someday that the church was going to be attacked and that we would have to defend it. His almost seemed like an idea like David Koresh, in Waco. And and I mean, and then he would sell and trade stuff, and in Florida it was legal. So like if I wanted, say, like the firearms I own, if I wanted to sell one, you could come to my house and I would say, oh, Lena, do you want to, so, oh, do you want my pistol? Okay, I'll sell it to you. Oh, have you ever committed a crime? Have you ever committed a felony, this, that, and the other? And you say no. Okay, you give me the, say, oh, I'm going to sell it to you for $500. You give me $500, I write your receipt. Boom, it's done. Florida, you didn't have to do any type of background check or anything like that. Now, if you bought it at a store, yes, you had to do some kind of check and a 3-day waiting period, but no. I'll tell you honestly, my AR-15, he custom built it for me. I actually brought a couple of people that wanted to buy, uh, because he would build custom AR-15s. He would sell them from home. And yeah, he just sold me mine. He was going to build me one. It was going to be like $1,500. And I had half of it built. Then he stopped building for a while. Then he finished building one. And then he said, look, Jules, that one's done. Do you want that one? I said, sure. And we just traded. And I had one that was all done. did you hear about last summer? No, I didn't hear about that. I don't remember hearing that about the Mississippi River flowing backwards. Are you sure it wasn't 2 summers ago when Hurricane Ian hit? Because that was a big hurricane, and it was really strong. Hurricane Ian is probably the worst one I've been through, and it was a 12-hour long hurricane, and and it was they only considered it a 4, but last year or a year later they said it was truly a 5. And the thing with hurricanes is when the winds go one direction, but when you so say when I was living in Florida, it was going like this and it went over. The winds were going one direction as half the hurricane went through. Then the eye wall passes over, which is the strongest part of the winds. And then all of a sudden the eye is going over and it clears open. So technically, if you were outside when the eye goes through, you will get time where rain will stop, winds will stop, and you can look upward into the sky and actually see the sky, and then it comes back over and then it changes direction. Yes. The thing is, yeah, the thing is with a hurricane, you're not gonna, certain things you can't stop. It's nature, and I mean, I took a walk outside in the middle of Ian twice, and it it'll just we had a massive pergola in our backyard, metal pergola, and we were afraid of it lifting it, the hurricane lifting it. We actually took pieces of the roof off, took them inside, and sure enough, that thing lifted that thing like an aluminum can. Hurricanes will lift cars. They'll take boats out of the water because it'll just create little waves that'll lift it. It's amazing how some of those Coast Guard boats are out there, but those Coast Guard boats are made so if they tip over, they'll automatically switch back to its normal, um, you know, just right back on to their, over. They will never stay upside down. They're almost unsinkable because they'll go and rescue people in the middle of some horrible storms. Okay. Yeah, as of this morning, we are now up to 122 subscribers. So I hope more people start, subscribing. Hopefully, some of the new topics will bring more people in. Um, my day's been good so far, Alice. Um, well, it looks like I'm going to go about 20 more minutes because we've already been here 3 hours and 10 minutes, but it's been going good. We've had a good conversation. We've been talking about, like I said, high demand religions and, churches. Lena's been here the whole time, and, we've gotten a lot of good topics out of it. And I'll probably make like a follow-up video, kind of, I'm going to continue to invite people to where we can do yeah, Lena, and that's one big thing. I'm one of those people that, like, I may start on one topic and then I'll just jump to a tangent. I tend to do that, like on Transition Tuesdays. I'll do that sometimes, and I start talking about another thing, and I go on a different tangent. But I think that's okay. I mean, it keeps it alive and not so boring. It can be like unexpected what we talk about. I think a lot of these topics we came up with last week are good. And I think this topic about the church may help grow it. Like I said, many of like the experts that me and you have watched, like you said, Cults to Consciousness, Amanda Ray, Mormon Stories with John DeLynn, and like I said, I even watched Exmo Lex. It's they're all experts and have grown have grown up in the church. I was a convert, so it may give a different set of eyes to it. Now, I don't expect to know everything, so I may have to look things up, but I want to give my spin on it. Being a convert, like I said, every single one of these others that I've listed off have grown up in the church and gone on missions, so they know a lot more than, and I've learned a lot from them. So I think I'm going to use it to, to help, the channel grow. And I think it may attract some trolls, but mainly I'm going to say it's probably going to attract Mormon trolls, because they're going to come on here and say that I'm going through a faith crisis, which I actually put on as a hashtag on there because I don't care. Right now, it's just going to be, hey, I am going through a faith crisis. I am, I'm going to be exiting the church, and that's it. Yes, Alice, I am ready for the Olympics. As you know, I am a swimmer, cyclist, and somewhat of a runner because I am a triathlete. So, and they do triathlon in the Olympics. So I think that'll be cool. Alice, in what church? Yes, Lena, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to, I'm taking my life back. I'm trying to move on from many different things. I want to be myself, and just basically, okay, that's cool, Alice. And basically move on and be able to be me, and be myself. As it is, there's a lot of challenges. One, the church, being trans, the public in general, it can be difficult because uh, even just being any part of the LGBTQ community gets challenged because many uh, people that are, one, very conservative or of any religious background will challenge the fact that you are either LGBTQIA, um, and even more, I would be challenged because of the beliefs by the church. Um, when I get my pod or when I can get a chance, I'm going to go out, and there's one book I would like to get as a reference guide. I would call it like Mormon for Dummies. It's actually it's actually like what I call the rookie handbook. Um, when you join the church, you go through, like I said, you go to like your what they call sacrament meeting, then you go to Sunday school. When you start Sunday school, you go through this one class called Gospel Doctrines, and you uh, um, so it's a book that they usually give it to you when you go um, to to gospel doctrines or gospel principles. I think it's doctrines, because principle, I think, is the one you become when you're more of a veteran to the church after like a couple of years. They send you that. The gospel doctrines really breaks down like the basic beliefs of the church, and like it'll talk about what you need to join, like baptism, first faith in Jesus Christ, then it'll break down they have to get baptized, and then that you have to receive the spirit of the Holy Ghost, and it'll talk about all the ordinances you have to, and it's really simple to understand for people that are new to it. So I think it would be a good book to use. So I think it would be, I'm going to try to get my hands on a copy, because I can, use it for here and kind of review a lot. It can make, if I made an episode for every chapter in that book, although it's a small book, it's not that thick, but it would be a good thing to break down each belief in what they believe. And like I said, I call it the rookie's guide to it, because it it is it is very, it breaks things down very easy. One of my friend's mom, I had a friend, she worked with me at SeaWorld, and her mom said that she used it to teach her other daughter, who was like a very ADHD, um, the basics of the church, and that it worked really well. So I'm going to try to get a copy of that book, I think, and we can, as we're looking through certain, uh, things, I'll just work it through there. Now, I won't, like, even with that, my Bible and Book of Mormon are in the pod. I know I always bring the pod into it. It'll be, but I won't need a set of scriptures for all this. I'll just kind of talk. I need to figure out the godparents for the baby. Okay, Alice, I understand what you're saying. So here's something I learned last night, and now I don't think the Mormon Church itself out in Salt Lake is watching. Someone actually I watched a video last night with one of these very, very, actually it's a young lady that left the church, She had actually gone on a mission for a year and a half. What young ladies get to go to on 18 months out in the mission field, and she was saying, just putting the word Mormon in your title, and when your channel gets monetized, it actually, the cost per click, that this is how much money the church has, that every time someone clicks on there, it will highlight to your church. But the only thing that does is you guys may see like church advertisements before my before my videos, or when you open my site, there may be a church advertisement. That's how much they put into their ad campaigns, but that's all they'll do. Now the missionaries, won't be able, because it basically what it's saying is, because if I say the word Mormon in my video or Mormon in my title, it does kind of say, oh, this person is interested in the church, but if not unless I click in their ad and then ask for something, will the missionaries come knocking at my door. In fact, that week when I had COVID, they did come knocking at my door for some. They probably know that I've moved here, because when you do your change of address, it somehow clicks to the church. But they didn't ask me by name. They just asked me if I wanted to talk. So it was like if they were walking and talking to a stranger, they would have asked for my dead name, obviously, and then they would have, and then I just told them I can't right now, I'm sick. And they said, well, we come in and offer you a prayer? Yes, Alice, I am resigning from the church. That day I could have probably done it really easy. All I would have had to do is have the elders walk in and then see my trans flag there. They probably would have walked, they probably would have walked out, and then they would have gone and reported me to the church, and that would have been it. Because that would have scared them off right away. This flag right here, they'd be like, oh no, he's got a pride flag in there. Or she. But that day I was not dressed up, so it would have been he. And they wanted to come in, and they offered me to come in and do a prayer so I could get better. But I said, no, I said, I'm sick, and basically had COVID at the time, so I don't want to, I didn't tell them that, but why give the missionaries COVID? Because then it'll go spread around the church. Which, of course, they say that the priesthood leaders should have a special, what do they call it? They have this special sense where they should be telling them not to go to because of stuff like that. And John, I was just watching a video by Dylan. He talks about it. So man, let's see, Alice and Lena, it looks like we're already coming up on 3 hours and 24 minutes. As always, we have good I think, Lena, the way you're looking at it, it would be, that's a good way. And yes, I mean, people should just love each other for who they are. and not just, stick, religious views. For example, one time when my stepson was racing BMX, we were at the racetrack, and I was mentioning something about church, and then the I have the one gentleman happened to ask me something about church, and he said to me, "So what church do you belong to?" And I said, "Oh, I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints," because it was a conversation my ex-wife and I were having. And he goes, "Well, if you guys ever want to come to correct church," he's all, we're right down the street, and he was a Baptist minister, so he wanted us to go to his. So, I mean, all churches teach that they're the right church. And they're going to, for some reason, they're going to say that they're the correct one, and that's a lot how the Mormon Church came around. And later on, when we talk a little history about it, well, I heard, that's we'll see that in it. So, ladies, as always, it's great having you two in here. You're my two best listeners in here that join me every time. I love it. We are going on 3 hours and 30 minutes here. So I know, Alice, you came in a little late, but that's okay. But what I want to do is close this stream. So what I'm going to do is probably put a video kind of summarizing this, and just talk about a few things to come for the week. I just want to make sure that I say to everybody, remember, you are on Jules Treasures. So remember, I am Jules, and everybody that does join us here, whether you're subscribers, or regulars that come visit me here, or you are new to the channel and visiting in here, and just if you want to chat in the chat box, you're always welcome. You are considered one of Jules' treasures. This area, we now call it Area 5T1. The 5 T's on my channel are transition, triathlon trends, training, and tips. So those are the things we talk about here. For now, we're going to be signing off this. We've been, this Sunday, we've been going for a long time. And so I hope everybody has a good night. Feel free to join me here on Transition Tuesday. I may do a video tomorrow. Sometimes I do a spontaneous Monday video when I show up from work. So please have a good night. I'll probably do another small video right now, just kind of summarize, see what the week has to come. And all of you, have a good night. Remember, you are my treasures. Please feel free to leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Let's help it grow. And please love one another and have a good night.